Amid shelling and gunfire from the Russian invasion, more than 3 million people have fled Ukraine as of March 16th. At this rate, officials from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees warn the exodus could surpass the 2015 Syrian crisis. Numbers are likely higher due to delays in tallying numbers in some countries. About 60% of Ukrainian refugees, or more than 1.8 million people, went to Poland. Others went to Hungary, Moldova, Romania, and Belarus. The UN says the number of displaced people likely will continue to rise by 100,000 to 200,000 a day. The armed conflict in Ukraine first began in early 2014 and quickly transitioned to a standoff with ongoing shelling and skirmishes occurring along the line that separates Russian and Ukrainian-controlled borders in the east.
I think the key thing to remember is that Ukrainians have been living with a war for 8 years, so they are not responding to a surprise right now. They have been thinking about this. They've been living with a low level of constant state of threat for 8 years.
The historic westward movement of people has become Europe's fastest migration crisis in decades. The exodus of Ukrainians is nearly twice the number of refugees recorded by the United Nations during the first 11 days of the Kosovo War. About 600,000 Kosovo residents became refugees, and another 400,000 were displaced inside Kosovo by the end of April 1999. UNHCR said as many as 6.5 million people could eventually leave Ukraine. Those fleeing to neighboring countries have met with governments and charities to respond to critical needs, but there is concern about people with limited mobility.
People with economic mobility will be the ones who are able to get out soon, and the poorest people are going to be the ones who get left behind. So that's also something to think about when we're talking about aid, humanitarian aid and refugee aid. A lot of people are going to be, also elderly and disabled and people with kids who might not be able to move very easily.
Migration experts agree that the latest refugee numbers echo earlier migration crises in Europe, such as the 12 million Germans who were displaced throughout Europe during World War II. Or even the 2015 crisis, in which more than 2 million people arrived in many EU countries, overwhelming the asylum and immigration systems. And because of that, migration experts say they can capitalize on the lessons learned.
The intense ramping up of school placements in education, in housing. We've seen it in Sweden, in Germany, and already now in Germany, for example, we see that protocols from 2015 have been reactivated to cope with the influx of refugees. So we can learn from the lessons, learn from the protocols and strategies that we had back then, and adjust them to the current needs.
And in an unprecedented move, the European Union agreed to activate the Temporary Protection Directive. That means refugees from Ukraine have been granted permission for temporary residency in the European Union for at least 1 year, with the possibility of an extension for 2 more years.
It was very important for the Union to show support towards Ukraine and towards the situation right now in Ukraine, and to do that very quickly. And across the Union is a manifest. What is really important about the TP is that this is a European status. It's not German status, it's not Greek status, it's a European status. And it also sends a very strong signal towards Ukraine.